There will be no Soviet Union. The past will not come back. Today Russia doesn't need this, and that is not our aim.
On February 24th, Russian President Vladimir Putin effectively declared war on Ukraine and authorized the Russian military to invade the country. The Russian army had amassed around 200,000 soldiers, along with tanks, artillery equipment, and field hospitals, across their border and inside Belarus along the border with Ukraine. This force is nearly the same size as the entire Ukrainian military. Additionally, the Russian government has recognized the independence of two breakaway states inside Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk, and ordered Russian troops inside both. The West has attempted to contain Russia's aggression towards Ukraine by imposing economic sanctions, increasing military aid to Ukraine, and offering diplomatic support. However, these efforts have not been enough to bring a peaceful resolution to the conflict. After Russian President Vladimir Putin declared war on Ukraine and authorized the invasion of the country with a massive military force, the biggest question on everybody's mind is what exactly Vladimir Putin and Russia want with Ukraine. The reason behind Putin and Russia's actions towards Ukraine is complicated and rooted in the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. For centuries, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and others had all been a part of the same country, deeply connected by their shared history. However, after the Soviet Union collapsed, 15 newly independent republics emerged, and Russia, the largest of them, lost half of its population and ceased to be a global superpower. During the Cold War, Moscow controlled the countries of the Warsaw Pact, which provided a massive buffer against potential military incursion from NATO. However, Moscow's control over the North European plain has diminished, but this plain was a crucial strategic area because almost entirely flat. The plain is shaped like a funnel with a very narrow width in northern Germany, but with a mouth that opens up increasingly wider as it approaches the Ural Mountains. As the plain widens towards the east, it becomes increasingly challenging to defend across its entire length, making it necessary to expand control westward. Since 1991, the situation has drastically changed against Moscow's favor. The former Warsaw Pact territories of Albania, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, Hungary, East Germany, and Romania are now part of NATO, as are the former Soviet republics of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. This has pushed the NATO front lines significantly further east across the North European plain and created a separated Russian territory between the mainland and the Kaliningrad exclave, known as the Suwalki Gap. Within this context, Ukraine is a geographic core interest to Moscow because if Ukraine is within Moscow's orbit, it would push the CSDO's and Moscow's defensive lines to the Carpathian Mountains in the southwest, narrowing their exposure across the North European plain to only the eastern border of Poland. Furthermore, Russia's economy is largely dependent on energy resources, particularly oil and gas, and is the literal foundation for the modern Russian state and power. Russia is the world's third largest producer of oil and possesses the world's largest proven reserves of natural gas, largely across Siberia, which has enabled it to become the world's leading exporter of natural gas. Russia's natural gas exports are critical for its economy, with pipelines supplying Europe, especially Germany, during the winter months, generating essential revenue for Moscow. However, any disturbance in this trade relationship would be disastrous from Moscow's perspective, and Ukraine is the most likely place for such a disruption to occur in the future. The discovery of shale gas reserves in Ukraine around Donetsk and Kharkiv in the east, and around the Carpathians in the west, in the early 2010s unlocked the potential for Ukraine to become Europe's second petrostate, with the world's 14th largest reserves of natural gas. However, Ukraine lacked the finances, technology, or equipment to harvest these resources in large quantities. When the Ukrainian government granted exploration and drilling rights to Western companies, such as Shell and Exxon, there was a sudden possibility that Ukraine could challenge Russia's gas supply to the European Union, making it a direct competitor and a threat to the Russian government's budget and GDP. Russia took the opportunity to invade Ukraine and seize the Crimean Peninsula, taking direct control of 2/3 of Ukraine's coastline and most of its maritime exclusive economic zone, as well as an estimated 80% of Ukraine's potential offshore oil and gas reserves. In conclusion, the war between Ukraine and Russia is a result of various complex factors, with Putin's desire to re-establish the Soviet Union being one of the main reasons. He sees Ukraine as a key player in achieving this goal, despite the West's opposition to his efforts to incorporate Ukraine into Russia. Putin maintains that Ukraine and Russia share a common history and spiritual space and are essentially one people. Therefore, his aggression towards Ukraine can be seen as an attempt to bring back the glory days of the Soviet Union. It is worth noting that other factors such as geopolitical interests, energy resources, and ethnic tensions also contributed to the conflict.